Rabbi Yisrael Salanta was one of the greatest sages of the 18th century in Lithuania. He was a very regal person, a great scholar, and the founder of the Mussar movement, a movement of ethics to improve personality. And people always would vie to have Rabbi Yisrael Salanta in their home. One particular Shabbat, a balabayit, a layperson, invited Rabbi Yisrael to his home. And he was so impressed to have this great scholar in his home for Shabbat. He wanted everything to be perfect. They went to shul on Friday night, and then they came back. And when they came into their home, the house owner, the head of the household, saw that the cover that is usually used to cover the challahs, the Shabbos bread, wasn't there. His wife had left it off, and therefore the table wasn't perfect. And he berated her and he scolded her. And so the meal went on. And Rav Yisrael Salanta was very quiet at the meal. And during the meal, he said as follows: why is it that on Shabbat we cover the bread? During the week, we don't cover the bread. We wash our hands, we sit down, and we make the blessing on the bread. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So why on Shabbat do we cover the bread? And he said the reason is because bread always has priority of place in Judaism. It's the first blessing that you make. But on Friday night, we cannot make the blessing on the bread first because we have to make kiddush. We have to sanctify Shabbat over a cup of wine. That's the first thing we have to do. And therefore, so as not to embarrass the bread, who usually comes first, we cover it, as if we don't want to see the shame of the bread, and we make the kiddush. Now, Rav Yisrael Salanta said, if that is true of a piece of bread, which is an inanimate object, that we're concerned about its feelings, that it shouldn't be embarrassed, then certainly when it comes to a human being, we should be concerned about their feelings and that they shouldn't be embarrassed. And that's all he had to say. And the balabos, the head of the household, understood that he had made a terrible mistake by scolding his wife in front of Rav Yisrael Salanta for doing what? For leaving the cover off the challah. The very reason why we put the cover on is the challah is to not embarrass it. And here he had embarrassed his wife, not only an inanimate object, but his beloved wife. This is actually a lesson that we see from this week's parasha, Vaeira, which describes the different plagues. And the Torah tells us that the first 3 plagues were not executed by Moshe, the plague of blood and frogs and lice. Why not? Why didn't Moshe strike the river to turn it into blood, or strike the river to turn it to extract the frogs? The reason why he didn't is because when he was a little child, he was placed in the river Nile, and it saved his life, and therefore he has a sense of gratitude. He can't cause harm to it. Well, it's an inanimate object, but nevertheless, even so, Hashem says, I don't want you to strike the river. Your brother will do it instead. And the same thing when it came to the 3rd plague, to strike the ground and to turn it into lice, he wasn't allowed to do it. Because when he had killed the Egyptian taskmaster, he had taken the body and concealed it in the dust of Egypt. The dust had come to protect him. And therefore he felt a sense of gratitude, even towards an inanimate object. So if this is how careful we have to be, even towards objects that have no feelings whatsoever, how much more so when it comes to the feelings of our fellow human beings. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.